This is back road. This is back roads of Illinois server to farmers and ranchers in central and the Midwest. Today's edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were bringing you lasted for farming sources and information sponsored by AgriGold. We're glad you're here on today for our program. I'm Cesar Delgado on Back Roads of Illinois today. The beans markets are challenging to be pretty difficult for farmers in the grain sector. Over the years of experience with the beans markets are steady, but it's keeping volatility. However, last week we had the Grains Quarterly report from the Department of Agriculture and the news from China. We were talking about it with Sue Martin from Ag and Investment. This is Back Roads of Illinois server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. The beans markets are challenging to be pretty difficult for farmers in the grain sector. Over the years of experience with the beans markets are steady, but it's keeping volatility. However, last week we had the Grains Quarterly report from the Department of Agriculture and the news from China. We were talking about it with Sue Martin from Ag and Investment. Hey, Sue, how are you?
I'm good, Caesar. Nice to be on.
So let's start with our conversation about the news from China with beans from last Monday. Some people have some concerns about tariffs issue and lack of demand. It's pretty tricky. What do you recommend within the premium risk on these beans markets?
Well, the bean market, I think first off, overnight, China came back to work, having been off of, basically out of the market supposedly for the Golden Week, which is their autumn festival. And that lasts a full week. And so they came back to work overnight. And of course, talk is they have bought 6 cargoes of beans for November, December shipment out of Brazil. But they also are putting into play or work that they're going to control how much rare earth minerals and materials that are exported out to the US. And that kind of weighed on the bean market because it took away optimism. But then also this morning, and I have not seen anything that says it's not true, nor confirming it, but there was rumor today that President Xi suffered a stroke and is in the hospital. Now, if that is true, Premier Li Keqiang is in North Korea for a meeting, and it would be expected that he would leave sooner than expected, or what he was scheduled to, and head back to Beijing. So I think traders are watching to see if that is indeed true, because if it is, then that throws a wrinkle in the meeting that was planned between President Trump and President Xi. Now, Premier Li Keqiang, I have always thought was very pro-American. So we'll see where this story goes.
Do you have any fear of losing demand with our customer, which is China, of course, Sue?
Well, U.S. corn, I think, is basically going to see very good exports. We've been continuing to see good exports. We've got the Chinese are basically remaining with their ag ministry. They left the imports of corn basically at, I believe it is right around 7 million metric tons. And so that is a lot less than what the US is expecting.
Of course, we will see on the news.
I missed what you just asked me.
The cattle markets.
Okay. Cattle, I'm friendly cattle. The last time I was on Market to Market, which was Labor Day weekend, I mentioned that I thought we would see cattle still make another new high and over the August high. Now, feeders have done that this week and have really done it very aggressively. And I have large Elliott Wave 5s overhead that we're aiming towards. The fats still have work to do. And today, the fats, October's and December's, closed faintly over a downtrend line from the August high. Now, we have to get through the highs that were cemented on or put in on September 22nd, 23rd of, say, October and December fats. And then that'll take us up over the 240 area on those two contracts, especially on the October's 242 area. And then 243.57 or right around in there is that high. And I think that we need to see the market try to, I think we'll get that high out. I think the box beef may have bottomed, and that'll be helpful. You have a major packer that's trying to say they're not going to buy 1,700-pound steers anymore or bid for them in Nebraska. I think he's trying to break the market, and I don't think he's going to be successful. And we're also looking at pastures being in great shape. The prices certainly behoove a cow-calf man, if he's so desiring to remain in the business, it would behoove him to be holding back heifers. And so I think the supplies of cattle are going to get tighter. Now, as we go down the road, we already have that border shut down between U.S. and Mexico. There was another case found yesterday, maybe yesterday or the day before, of about 170 miles south of the border. And the closest has been 70 miles. And so that was on October 6th. And so consequently, I would have to say this new drug that Dectomax has been around and Mexico's been using it, but the new drug of Dectomax might even be more aggressive, but it takes 21 days to, once injected, to basically kill the larvae or make the animal safe. And so I think when we heard a rumor here, what was it, a week or so ago, that it could be November that we could see cattle, the border reopen, that may be true, but I think for now, we need to be getting that drug out, and I'm sure we are in the US, and likewise sending it across the border to make those cattle safe to come back. Now, when that border opens, that's one negative for this market. The next thing is that on Monday, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday, President Lula and President Trump spoke by phone. And supposedly they got along very well. President Lula was asking President Trump to take 40% of the tariffs off. And in doing that, that would open the door for, well, first off, sugar imports are down 81%. Coffee imports are down sharply too, but it would bring back the imports of beef from Brazil. And if that occurs, they're supposed to be meeting here before super long. I don't have an exact date, but it's not very far, supposedly, when those two are going to meet. And if that happens, that they pull 40% off, then that's another reason the market tries to set back. And ultimately, in years similar to the one we're in, where you have the June contract of fats makes the high for the year up to that point, and then the August contract comes and takes that high out. Usually in years like that, where you rally into August or September, October, you will have a pretty much all the 5 years, this one's year 5, the other 4 years since 1975-76, they all still broke into December. 1 year even broke on down ultimately into February 24th with the April contract of the next year. So I think with fives over the top of this market, I think we're pushing the envelope here. And if we can get fats to come up and take the high out, I think I would have to say for the price levels we have, producers really do need to have protection, I think, on these cattle. And I would have floors stuck under them, if nothing else, on feeder cattle with puts and likewise in fats. But my take is this market, I think, should still go to higher highs. Now, feeders have sufficed me. The fats have yet to do it, but they're working at it.
How about the fundamentals with the fats?
Well, fundamentally, you look at the cattle and, numbers are tight. The North has more numbers than the South. And we've been sending cattle from the North down to Texas to the packing houses down there because they don't have cattle in the feedlots. And I took quite a few of the people that were working in those feedlots too. So we're sending cattle south, and that in of itself should, I think, give us a support under this market. Cash markets, we haven't seen much trade yet this week. The cutout yesterday was mixed, but last week we set, I believe, a record for the cutout box beef movement. And this week we're looking like we're competing against last week. So very good movement on box beef. That's good news. Yesterday, the select dropped pretty hard and the choice was up fractionally in a matter of cents. But it does appear like we're making a seasonal low in the cutout. So that should be supportive as well.
Do you have any final thoughts about the corn demand for right now?
Well, corn demand's been pretty good. We've had excellent exports in corn, and that may be saving that market. The other thing is, of course, in Iowa, we have an awful lot of southern rust. And yields, it seems like if you've got a good yield in Iowa, it might be around 210. If you have fields that had no ponding spots, then you might be around 230 if you're blessed. But for the most part, it seems like 200 to 210 is a pretty good yield this year. And so, there's quite a few yields coming in 185, 190. And of course, if you didn't spray fungicide, you might be quite a bit less. And so that to me makes me think that Iowa, Illinois because of drought, but I think what we're going to see is the state yield, when we start to get a USDA supply demand report out, when that occurs, that makes me believe that the yield for Iowa and possibly Illinois both come in under 200 bushel to the acre.
Where people can find you for your consulting services for their grain and livestock markets.
Well, people this is a year where the livestock individual has done a very good job. I mean, if he didn't do anything, he's done excellent thus far, but we all know that worm turns and they need to lock in. These are huge profits. As far as the grain producer, I think he's interested in needing help with hedging or marketing, because this has been a year where they didn't market real well on 24. And then they came into this year and started marketing that. But then the highs came so early this year, especially in corn, that it caught him off guard, and justifiably, there was quite a few different weather services that were saying we were going to have a hot, dry summer, and that kept those producers from being willing to let go of crop because they thought the prices would get better. We had one service, actually maybe two, that was calling for the opposite, a hot, wet summer. And that's actually what we've gotten. Now, this fall, one of those two predicted we'd have a warm, dry fall. And so far, he's been pretty right.
Thanks, Sue. I
You're
enjoyed our conversation for today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being asked to be a part of it.
Sue Martin from Ag and Investment on Back Roads of Illinois.